Said Fulcherove, it's an absolute honour to be here this morning to launch Sinn Féin's Manifesto for the 2015 Westminster election. I think somebody has told me it's the first time in decades, maybe ever, that a manifesto launch has taken place outside Belfast. We couldn't have picked a better spot. You're here this morning at Ranfurly House, the site of the ancient Hill of the O'Neill, the ancient capital of Ulster, and once regarded as one of the most strategically important sites in Ireland. And from this vantage point, the chieftains of the O'Neill dynasty could view each of the 9 counties of Ulster. So today, all eyes are turned towards this ancient site once again as we launch our manifesto for this vitally important election. I would say, if you have time, go out and have a look around you at the view. It is spectacular. And I was an adult the first time we were able to access this site, so it's pretty symbolic that we're here today launching the Sinn Féin Manifesto. And following on from the success of last year's elections, when 500,000 people across Ireland voted for Sinn Féin, the Westminster election on the 7th of May is the first of 3 important elections for Sinn Féin and the people of this island. These elections provide an opportunity to increase our political strength to the point where our ultimate goal of a united Ireland becomes inevitable. And central to this campaign and to our core political beliefs is the protection of the most vulnerable members of our society. That's why Sinn Féin is opposed to austerity, regardless of whether it comes from London, Brussels or Dublin. We're facing a negative unionist alliance, which now includes the British Conservative Party and which is wedded to Tory austerity. But we remain firm in opposing this austerity agenda, protecting the vulnerable and taking power back from Westminster and putting it in the hands of our locally elected representatives. Our first speaker this morning needs no introduction. We say that a lot and then we go on and introduce them, but no matter. Martin has led our struggle for many years, the leader of our negotiating team, striving for the Republic proclaimed in 1916, leading the peace process and spearheading our opposition to austerity. So it's my pleasure and privilege to ask Joint First Minister Martin McGuinness to say a few words. Gormila Meredith.
Well, a díomh agus tá fáilte romh agus tá achas mór orm a bhíonn seo libh ar maidin. Gur mágad, Michelle. This manifesto that we're launching today represents our absolute commitment to the electorate. It is our vow to continue to resist the disastrous agenda of Tory austerity here. It's our pledge to defend the most vulnerable, to protect public services and deliver a new way, a better way forward for this society. So following this election, Sinn Féin will be seeking an immediate negotiation with the incoming British government to secure a viable budget to deliver public services, return economic powers to promote growth, jobs and prosperity, and to protect those most in need. We will be calling on all of the other political parties and civic society, including churches and trade unions, to stand up and stand together against austerity and for growth and equality. Any incoming British government must get the message. So we will resist austerity and cuts to our public services, our economy and our citizens. A new budget is required to end austerity, and we need the fiscal powers necessary to determine our own economic policy, to stabilise the political institutions and build on the progress of the peace process. The last point I want to make, and there's obviously considerable debate about this in England and also to a certain extent here, and that is what will the next government consist of. And I think I can say without fear of contradiction that none of the political parties here will play any key role whatsoever in the formation of the next government. It is my view that the next government in Britain will come from a configuration of the Conservative Party, the Liberal Democrats, the Labour Party and the Scottish National Party. That's where the next government will come from, and those parties here that propagate the notion that they will be in a position of influence are basically misleading the electorate. What all of the parties here need to do in the aftermath of the election is give an absolute commitment that they're prepared to stand with us and with civic society, the community and voluntary sector, with the unions, with the churches, against the austerity agenda that has been propagated by the Tory-led administration, and which Labour have indicated in the course of recent times that they are committed to also. So this is big stuff. This is probably going to be one of the most important Westminster elections in recent times. What we need to see in the aftermath of that election is all of the political parties in the north of Ireland standing together to make the case that a society emerging from conflict deserves better than what this Tory administration have been involved in the course of recent times, withdrawing £1.5 billion, £1,500 million from our block grant. And now going further, as they have done in the course of recent times, and indicating that they intend to take £30 billion more from frontline services and from the most vulnerable and disabled and marginalised people within our society. So there's a big battle to be fought, and as always, Sinn Féin will be at the forefront of that battle in a very peaceful and democratic way in opposing the agenda that has been put forward, which has been so disastrous and detrimental to all of our people. Gurmila, Magov.
So I want to first of all echo what the other speakers have said and welcome you all here to this historic place this morning. And essentially what this election is about, it's about the type of future the people of this island want and what we want to do about that. It's clearly about relationships here within this state, about our relationships with the rest of the people of the island, and of course relationships between our island and Britain. And as Martin McGuinness said, and we shouldn't gainsay the achievements which he has outlined, the North has been transformed in recent years. But let's be clear, there is still resistance. There's resistance to equality, there's resistance to the necessary processes of change. So we're seeking a positive mandate to continue with a progress and progressive social, economic and political changes. And it's now clear, they've both said it, that the configuration of parties which will make up the British governments, they want to continue, particularly the Tories and Labour, to impose austerity on society here. And it's always been the historical fact that the British governments take decisions primarily in the interest of England and not of citizens here, and that is set to continue. So austerity now clearly is the price for the Union. We'll continue to campaign to end the Union, to end partition, and we'll be seeking a border poll in the next term of the Assembly. Now, of course, others have a different view of the future and of the Union. But even they have had to acknowledge that the interests of people in the North are best served by the transfer of political and economic decision-making powers from London. So whatever attitude other parties have about the future of the Union, they know that democracy and political accountability demand this. And they also know in their hearts of hearts that people here, citizens here, want local politicians to take responsibility for delivering prosperity, growth and equality. Sinn Féin is the only party in this election firmly opposed to austerity and with a proven track record in negotiations. We are, as I have said, in a time of fundamental change. Under the terms of the Good Friday Agreement, the union between this state and Britain has changed. The terms have changed. And now within Britain itself, the union is also changing. So the choice for unionists couldn't be more stark. The DUP, the UUP, the TUV are all Conservative parties committed to austerity. They support Tory plans for 12 billion sterling more cuts. That means cuts to public services, including health and education, which will hurt the sick, the disabled, the elderly, and those on low and middle incomes. And the impact on household income, on jobs, on public services will be enormous. And as someone who represents the constituency of Louth, I can see that. You can't walk the length of yourself without meeting people who are punished for a recession which they did not create. Austerity is a policy pursued by the rich, by the wealthy, and by the elites. So I believe that working class unionists should reflect on the fact that whatever their position on the unionist parties do not represent their economic interests. Unionist parties also back a Tory EU referendum that could see Britain leave the European Union. If there is to be a referendum, and there's no certainty about this, then Sinn Féin believes there must be a separate and binding one here in the north. So we will fight Tory cuts. We will defend the most vulnerable. But we also have to continue with the work of national reconciliation and equality. We have to stand up for citizens' rights. We have to stand against the scourge of sectarianism, racism and homophobia. This election is one of 3 key elections for Sinn Féin in the next 12 months. We're currently fighting a by-election in Carlow Kilkenny with our candidate Kathleen Function. So north or south, both parts of the island and across the island, we're for an inclusive economic recovery where no family or no community is left behind and where prosperity benefits everyone, not just the elites. We also believe, and there's a referendum campaign underway at the moment, in equality for all citizens, and we will be, in the marriage equality referendum, advocating strongly for a yes vote. Our opponents here in the north, but particularly in the southern state, are strident, reckless and are engaging in rants against Sinn Féin. There are 500,000 reasons for this. That's the 500,000 people who have voted for Sinn Féin in the last election. So we need to maintain the momentum for change. We are committed to this referendum, to this People's Pact, and to achieve this we need to secure the largest vote possible in this election, and I am asking the people to give us that mandate. Gora míle máirgh.